Hi, this is Elvis Chidera. So I decided to create some video lessons for the Building Android App series. If you haven't been following the series on Medium, please check the link that is included in the video description below. In this lesson, we'll focus on building the core feature of the app, which is to identify songs that are playing around the user. The app will be written in Kotlin and we'll be using the test-driven approach. Okay, let's dive into the project now. To fast track things, I've already added the needed dependencies to the app already, so I'll briefly walk you through them. So we have the app compass v7 dependency, we have the card view dependency, we have the design dependency, we have the recycler view dependency, we have the support dependency, we have the espresso idling resource dependency, and we have the constraint layout dependency. So for JSON, deserialization and serialization, we have JSON, we have Glide, the image loading library, and we have SpinKit, which is the fancy progress view library. So for local unit tests, we have JUnit, and we have Mockito, which we'll use to mock objects. For UI test, we have Espresso Core, we have Espresso Contrib, and Espresso Intent, which we'll be using to write UI test. One thing you'll notice here is we didn't include the actual version number in the app build.gradle file. We added it in the project level build.gradle file. We declared all the dependency version here and we are referencing them in the app module. So the last library added to the project was the ACRO Cloud library, which is ACRO Cloud is a third-party service that provides the music identification feature we'll be using to discover music. So it's adding to your project is pretty simple. You just add the native libraries to your GNI libs folder, which contains the native library for each device architecture, as you can see here. And also, you need to add the Android SDK jar file to your project libs folder, as you can also see here. Another thing I added to the project was the needed permissions. So we need the access network state permission to know if the device is connected and the internet permission to be able to access the network. We also need the record audio permission to be able to record the audio that is playing. So with all that done, let's work on the discover feature. First thing we'll do is to create the discover package, since we'll be using the package by feature structure. Next, we create an empty activity called discover activity. It's going to be the default launcher activity. Make sure you select the launcher activity checkbox and then make sure you select Kotlin as the source language for the app. You should get a screen like this when Android Studio is done creating the project. So to import the arrow class, we hit alternate and enter. Okay, just add a little space there. Since we'll be using the TDD approach to develop this app, so we hit alternate enter here also and click on create test. We'll create a new test class called discover activity test. It's going to be an Android test, so it will run on an emulator or an actual device. We'll need to add some annotation to the test class. First to be the run with annotation, which specifies that this test will be run using the Android JUnit4 test runner. Next is the large test annotation, which specifies that this test takes a few seconds to run. We also need to add the JVM test rule, the activity test rule, which specifies the activity to launch for this test. Adding that is pretty simple. You just create a new test rule and pass in the activity you want to launch. We also need to annotate this property with the JVM field annotation to specify to the Kotlin compiler that it should expose this property as a field. We'll create our first test, which verifies that when the view is loaded, the discover fragment is shown to the user. So this will be quite simple, a very basic test using the Espresso testing framework. So you have on view with ID. We'll be looking for the view with that particular ID, discover fragment view, which we haven't created yet. And we'll check to see it that is displayed. So resolve the inputs. Android Studio should give you a warning that it can't find that view. So we are going to create it now by creating a new fragment. We'll call it discover fragment. So uncheck the include fragment factory methods and include callbacks, and click on finish. Android Studio should create the fragment for you, and it should have something identical to this. So remove that import that can be found and alternate enter to import the arrow file or the class, and then go to the fragment layout file and add the ID attribute to the root view and give it the discover fragment view tag ID. So we'll be able to run the test now. So you should see a run button close to the class, and you click on it, select the emulator device and click and OK, and it should start building your project now. It should take a few seconds, and it should take a few seconds, and it's installing it on the emulator now, and the test, I think the test just completed. Yes, so as you can see, you're seeing red everywhere, meaning the test actually failed. So if you look at the error message there, it's telling you they couldn't find any view with that particular ID. That's because we haven't added the implementation yet to show the fragment in the activity. So okay, so let's just close all these classes for now, and we'll be adding the implementation to the activity class now that will show the fragment, discover fragment. So I've already created a fragment utils object. In Kotlin, objects are just singletons, or your regular you could declare a regular static methods here. So I've declared a function called add if not exist, which only adds a fragment if a fragment with the ID doesn't already exist with the fragment manager, which is quite useful to avoid adding duplicate activities, adding duplicate fragments. So it just checks if there's an existing fragment with that tag. If there's none, we add it to the fragment manager. So using that class, or that object, sorry, we'll be adding the discover fragment. So passing the support fragment manager, we'll need a container. Yeah, we'll have to, since the activity will just be hosting the discover fragment, we could use the simple frame layout and get rid of that. And okay, get rid of that. We'll also remove the unused app namespace, then add the ID, which should be discover fragment container. This is where the discover fragment will reside, and just make this pretty, bring that down. Okay, so that's done. Copy that and do arrow.id, pass the container ID, then create a new instance of the discover fragment and passing a tag for the fragment, which will just be simple discover fragment. That will do. So we'll go back to the test and try to run it again on the emulator. Grid is building. It should take a few seconds to get it on the emulator. Okay, so it's installing the APK now, and the test should succeed. Yes, as you can see here, green. That means it was successful. So this is actually TDD in practice. Write failing test, write the implementation, and then run the test again. Make sure they're all green, no red at all. Okay, so with this, the discover activity implementation is done, and we can move on to other more interesting things.